Welcome to OM Report by Andre Alpa, your interview-focused podcast on topics from online marketing to internet startups.
So, today's OM Report is with Cindy Krum.
Krum.
Can you please introduce yourself and what you do?
Sure. So my name is Cindy Krum. I'm the CEO of a company called Mobile Moxie based in Denver, Colorado. We do mobile SEO consulting as well as just mobile marketing strategy consulting.
Right.
And I've been around since before the iPhone.
Okay. Well, most of us have.
No, but I've been talking about mobile SEO since before the iPhone.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So how did you kind of make this your skill set? How did it become that you got into the topic so early, and what jobs did you do before that kind of qualified you for what you do now?
So I was an SEO, a really, studious SEO before this. And there's a couple different stories about how it all got started, because the idea came into my mind, at one point when I was interviewing to do a mobile marketing job, but it turned out that it was like mobile marketing, like wrapping cars and banners, and I was disappointed to find out that the job had nothing to do with cell phones. So then, years later, I was doing SEO, and I had just gotten a promotion, and I went out and spent my promotion on a new fancy phone, and I did a search for one of my clients, and I noticed that the results were different. And I didn't know why, and I tried to research, and no one was saying really why or anything about mobile rankings.
Like in the old days where there was a mobile index and this kind of stuff?
Yeah, with the mobile index, and
so you were hunting down links from the mobile index?
Yeah, I was. Do you remember the little green phones? Like there were little green phones that would show up in search results if it was a mobile-friendly site or if it was WAP-friendly.
Yeah.
So I just started researching. Google wasn't writing about it, so I started researching mobile development blogs to see what the developers were writing about, and then applying what I knew of SEO and saying to the mobile developer blogs.
But you were kind of on the agency side back then,
Yeah, I was
right?
an agency.
Okay. So did you ever leave the agency side? Did you switch to in-house at one point in time, or you were kind of agency side all the time?
I was agency until I left to do my own thing.
Okay.
So, and before I was agency, I was building websites. So at the agency, I was just doing SEO. Before that, I was just building really crappy front page websites.
Click. Okay. So what do you say these days? What's kind of the standard suggestion? I mean, there's these three great options that are offered to us as being okay.
Yeah.
What are your guts feelings, or when do you suggest which of the options? Like, or do you have like a secret favorite that you kind of like over others, and for what reasons?
It really depends on the situation, as usual. My secret favorite, or the one that I want to recommend, sometimes I can't, is dynamic serving or selective serving, where the server recognizes what kind of a device is asking for the site, and then can send a totally different version of HTML depending on the device. So they have a mobile-specific page, maybe a tablet-specific page, maybe a desktop-specific page, but it all shows up on the same URL. So you don't have to do that much. Once you've done that work, you don't have to do as much SEO work, no more than you would normally really do for a desktop site.
Right, so it kind of has the advantage of just having one URL, like it would be in responsive, and has the advantage of, let's say, the rel alternate setup, where you would have a really fast mobile website.
Yes, much faster and more tailored to having the right button sizes and stuff like that for the mobile phone, but not trying to cram all the same stuff on a mobile phone that you would have to send in a desktop, which that's the big disadvantage of using responsive design, is it's one code base with media queries, and that
exactly. It takes long.
It takes a long time, yeah.
Right.
It ends up, they've done some studies that show that here's the size and speed of a mobile page, here's the size and speed of a regular desktop page, and the responsive design is more.
Actually, I talked to Matt Cutts about that yesterday, and he said, well, I think, or like, let's say I said that I think he prefers responsive design because that's the thing that can be least messed up, which is a terrible reason, I think, for picking on the one hand. And I think from him, like from a meta perspective, like looking at gazillions of pages, I can sort of understand the suggestion.
I think that it is, for Google, it's the easiest to explain to a wide array of webmasters, and you're right, it's the easiest to not for a large portion of the population to not screw up. That doesn't mean it's the best. I think that dynamic serving is great, and it's better than MDOTs. MDOTs are still fine, theoretically, but now that they've done this thing that they did last week, which is the faulty redirects, have you seen this?
No.
Okay, so they started penalizing...
If you're not redirecting to the correct corresponding page.
Yeah, and so 2 years ago at this conference...
They announced it earlier, but now they've changed a little bit.
They've changed it. So 2 years ago at this conference, Pierre Farr announced I think the mobile crawler, the rel alternate, rel canonical, and he said explicitly, any of the mobile site development options is fine. We don't algorithmically prefer one to another. But now with this faulty redirect thing, what they're saying is that you have to, if you're doing MDOTs, you have to have a 1-to-1 ratio of pages. So if you have a desktop page, you must have a corresponding mobile page, or if you have a mobile page, you must have a corresponding desktop page. And that was one of the benefits of going MDOT, is that you didn't have to adhere 100% because it doesn't make sense for everyone.
Yeah, but like my interpretation would be like, especially like because they're showing that there's these faulty redirects in the SERPs now, I would understand it if I'm go pick an MDOT, let's say rel alternate setup, that I would just not set the rel alternate in the cases where I don't have a corresponding mobile website.
So, but it's not just rel alternate, because the deal with the faulty redirects is not the bidirectional tagging is wrong, it's that the redirect is wrong. So people...
Redirecting to a different piece of content.
Yeah, so what they're saying that they're doing is when everything, all the mobile pages, or any desktop page that's requested from a mobile device redirects to the mobile homepage instead of a corresponding page.
Correct.
So it's not the rel alternate and the rel canonicals.
I totally agree, but the thing is, you could say, let's say I have 10 pages,
yeah,
and only for 5 of them I have like a mobile corresponding page. Yeah. So only for 5 out of the 10 I would send them to the MDOT, and the other 5 I would serve just like the desktop version.
Yeah.
That would be the correct way to deal with it now that they have these faulty redirects thing.
Absolutely. It's just not, it's not...
But that's not very elegant, I
It's
agree.
not an elegant solution, and the word faulty has a clear negative connotation.
Sure.
You know, it's
not like it's wrong.
It's a pejorative word when it's a business decision, right? They're putting a pejorative term against just a business decision, you know, and I think that's not fair.
And I think especially in enterprise SEO, we've seen many cases where it's just, you know, kept separate CMS for mobile and desktop, and they don't have everything in mobile. Exactly.
Yeah. Well, and I've seen situations where, like, let's say we have 5,000 desktop pages, but we're not selling on mobile, or we're just not doing it, so we have 5 desktop pages. Yeah. And there's just not, I mean, you can't say 1,000 redirect here and 1,000 to here and 1,000 to here. Like, that doesn't make sense either. Yeah. So just showing the desktop page, sometimes, you know, sometimes you get into situations where if you're not violating one rule, you're violating another. So, like, what if these 5,000 pages have Flash on them, or have stuff that won't work on phones or whatever, because they also tell you don't block them in robots. So it's like, okay, we're going to break a rule here. Which one?
But so my experience is with a dynamic serving, it's quite complicated to implement usually for companies. So that's kind of the bad downside to that one. That's why kind of your secret favorite is kind of the thing that I see least in kind of the real world.
Well, it's an ever evolving development style, right? It's constantly evolving and changing, and it has many, many names. We've called it selective serving, dynamic serving, adaptive responsive, adaptive responsive. Yeah, I know, that's a horrible name. Responsive 2.0, RESS, which is my term that I like.
Why? What does it stand for?
RESS. So it's.
Did you mix your name into it?
No. I didn't come up with it.
Okay.
But
it's just your favorite term for it.
Well, it's what the developers were calling it before Google got involved.
Okay, so what does it stand for?
Or something. It's slightly different, but RESS stands for responsive design with server-side components. So you have a responsive design, and then the server, instead of the server sending a whole different set of HTML, it'll send different elements.
Just pieces. Okay.
Yeah, so it's like using an image server or something like that. But that's all great too. I mean, I think RESS is easier to explain and implement potentially than selective serving. Although who knows, you know? But I think Google just cannot get behind selective serving because it's aka cloaking.
Yes, but
right?
it's device-oriented cloaking, not bot-oriented cloaking, which is totally okay to do.
Well, they weren't always clear about that being totally okay.
In the
But today
session,
they said
exactly. So
they've
it was kind of an unusual thing to so explicitly say, right? That was kind of a hidden highlight, I thought.
I thought so, yeah.
Because it was more like a second sentence after the main thing.
Kind of mumbled, and you're like, wait a minute, okay.
I have to write that down. let me think about that one.
Right. So
that was interesting to hear.
Yeah. Well, and they talked about the headless browsers, using the headless in the session, the technical SEO session. They talk about headless browsers, which basically allows you to have what is essentially a Flash site, right? It's all one URL, and it's not done by Flash anymore. Now they're using JavaScript and libraries and stuff like that, and Ajax. But you don't change URLs when you change sections of the site, or you move on to different content. And they're building mobile sites like that too, single-page design mobile sites that are all done essentially with a push state, although it's not always push state. Sometimes it's different code stuff. But that's the new way to develop, the cutting edge way. So it's all just changing so fast.
It seems like we're not there yet. It's not kind of finalized. I mean, we have these three solutions, and everybody's mixing and combining and trying to figure out what's what. But as long as they have like such strong advantages and disadvantages to them, it seems like we're not at the end of the journey yet.
No, we're not.
For me,
well, we're not at the end of the journey. But assuming that there is an end might be wrong to begin with. I think there might not be an end. It's always gonna change and evolve. But I think assuming that there's a right way to do it, or for Google to pick one right way, that's not fair.
Right.
And it's what gets me lots of business, mixed blessing, because people are saying, well, what is the right way, Cindy? And it's like, well, you cannot just look at SEO for those questions. These are business decisions that you've got to answer, and then look at the SEO.
Right.
So it's very complicated, though. It's been very interesting and fun to keep up with.
Absolutely.
I don't know. Do you have a mobile site?
For my company, for the agency?
Yeah.
I do. It's responsive because that was the easiest to implement.
Yeah. But next
Very
version,
simple.
version 2, selective serving.
Well, I can't make any promises. It's not only my decision, it's a business decision. It has to be made. It has to be jointly.
You got to talk to the developers, get them on board. Right. You don't want angry developers.
Sometimes there's even more important stuff than the agency websites. It's okay. All right. So thanks again so much for your time.
Okay, thank you very much. It was nice to meet you.
OMReport and Andre Alpa would like to thank you for your attention. You can get more episodes on www.omreport.com.